welcome to another episode of Extra Time with Girls on the Ball, where upsets, glorious goals and red cards were the order of the weekend. So let's get into it. I'm Rachel.
I'm Sophie.
And this is Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. Okay, I think we need to start firstly by being honest with our listeners, Sophie. And I think we need to share with them that this is not the first time we have recorded this podcast.
We've had a bit of a mare today.
We've had an absolute mare today. You can tell this is the last episode of the year. We had audio problems. We had video problems. So we are going again. It is late. We apologise that our episode is late, but we wanted to make sure it was right and it was good.
But we have got chance for questions now, which we didn't have earlier.
We do have a chance for questions. So every cloud. Okay, so in today's short, sharp episode, I say short and sharp, I think it's going to be a little bit long today. We're going to be looking at this weekend's upsets. It was not just the North London derby. We'll have a look at the rest of the WSL games this weekend. We'll find out Sophie's standout moment of the week, of course. The Championship has returned to its bonkers best. And a quick nod to the FA Cup. And finally, the FAI have appointed a new manager who is perhaps both the most likely and the least likely candidate, but we'll get on to that. Before we go anywhere, let's make sure that you are subscribing to wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe on YouTube. You can give us a thumbs up, you can review us, you can leave us a comment, do all of that fun stuff. And if you want to leave us any messages or get in touch, you can find us at Girls on the Ball on all of the social media platforms, even Threads. Okay, WSL results. Tottenham 1, Arsenal 0, Thomas with a goal. Manchester United 1, Liverpool 2. Toon, an own goal from Turner and Taylor Hines with the goals there. Everton 1, Manchester City 4, a perfect hat-trick from Bunny Shaw. Roard and Galley getting the goals there. Bristol City 0, Chelsea 3, James Cuthbert-Kerr on the score sheet. Leicester City 1, West Ham 1, Peterman and Hayashi getting the goals there. And Aston Villa 1, Brighton 0, and the goal there was from Leon. So we're going to start with, obviously, the North London derby, coming in as shock number 1 of the weekend. Started on Saturday, early kick-off, 12 o'clock kick-off, very early. And we were watching this one from the posh seats. Thank you, Tottenham. What a way to watch an historic North London derby with Spurs getting their first ever win.
Well, I was working. You were enjoying the full, experience.
But you were still in it.
I was still in it.
You were still eating the food.
Yeah.
You were still sitting on the comfy seats.
I was moaning about the food as well. Which I shouldn't moan about, because we were very lucky to be there. But it was breakfast time. I hadn't eaten yet, and we were eating not really breakfast food.
Oh, the woes of being in the posh seats. You get dinner for breakfast. God, are you okay? Have you recovered from that?
I've survived, yeah.
Good.
It was hard.
Okay, well, the atmosphere was great. It was over 19,000 in the stadium. They got treated to a very special afternoon as Spurs came away with the win. Somewhat unexpectedly, given they've never won a North London derby before, and given Arsenal dominated most of the statistics. They had a 2.5 XG, 31 shots created. The goal, though, was a thing of beauty from Tottenham Hotspur. Talk to me, Soph.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, it was down to Tottenham performed really, really well. And I think they nailed the game plan, and they nailed the kind of compactness of their defence when they want to play in attacking football style.
Disciplined.
They were disciplined, yeah, and I think they nailed Robert Villaham's game plan down to a T. They showed the progress of what they've done over the last few weeks since that 7-0 loss to Manchester City just before the international break. And they've shown since that point that they have learnt their lessons. It gave them, for want of a better phrase, a kick up the butt. And they have definitely learnt how to become more compact while wanting to play attacking football and that kind of attacking style that Villaham wants to play. I think Arsenal were wasteful, and that's not to say take anything away from Tottenham. Arsenal were wasteful. Their chances weren't very good chances. Yes, Caitlin Ford hit the post, and yes, there maybe was a clearance of the line late on. But all in all, the chances weren't the best kind of chances or the most high potential kind of chances that you would want to find.
I think Vodakova had made 8 saves, which is pretty impressive.
She was pretty good, but I do still think
31
that
shots.
They weren't clinical enough in taking those chances, or
good
they were
quality.
often kind of outside the box or went over the bar. It was just kind of a lack of quality in kind of the execution side of things. Tottenham, as I said, they nailed the game plan, and that goal is just a thing of beauty.
Well, thank you, because that was a superb analysis of the rest of the game. But the question was, tell me about the goal.
The goal was a thing of beauty. It was 6 passes. It sliced through Arsenal's press from back to front, from Votikova at the back, and then ending up with Thomas at the front in a knee slide. And I think it just showed the capabilities of this Tottenham team. And I know Robert Villahan was very pleased with it afterwards. He tweeted, he quote tweeted the video, and he said, "Dear ChatGPT, show me how Tottenham's Hotspur score goals." And I think that just shows what he wants. He keeps talking about the Tottenham way of playing football. We've seen it across Tottenham in terms of all of the teams, the men and the underage groups as well, that they want to play in this kind of style of football. And it's going to take time. It's going to be bumpy, but they're sticking to their guns. Robert's sticking to his guns, his convictions, and he's very much a long-term game, short-term pain kind of person.
And you and I have discussed in the past about their in-game intelligence, and fully respect them wanting to stick to a style of football, because that is how you bleed in a style of football into a team. But the in-game intelligence of recognising the moments where you perhaps need to sit back, take the sting out of a game, get control of a game, that's not necessarily changing your style of play, but it's recognising when you're being pumped 3-4-0 by someone, that there is a moment, we've seen it with other teams, where you may need to say, okay, we need to sit back for 10 minutes and just take the sting out of the game and take the fluidity out of the opponent's attack. That's not changing style. And I think, as you touched on, they've learned from that Man City game.
It comes from experience, and we've seen it with other teams in the league. Leicester City, for example, 6-2 loss to Arsenal. They've learned from that moment. I think you also, like, if I think of a really good example of that kind of experience, you'd think back to the Lionesses at the Euros. And in that game against Sweden, they were under the cosh for the first bit of that game. And then Leah Williamson just took the ball and calmed it down. And they passed it about maybe 12 times, I think, 10 to 12 times between the back four, just passing it back and forwards. And sometimes you're thinking, like, I guess a spectator would be thinking, what are they doing? They're just going laterally rather than going in anyway. But they're taking the sting out, and they're making sure they're getting possession. They're allowing their midfielders or their forwards to get a breather, and themselves, like, running without the ball is much more tiring than running with the ball. So it just gives them time to calm down, and that's what these kind of teams need to learn, is that you don't always need to be going gung-ho and forward or pressing full pelt. You can take moments in the game just to chill out a bit and take the sting out of an opponent's pressure.
Well, we did see Tottenham, do the amazing thing of beating Arsenal for the first time, winning the North London derby. They were delighted. That was shock number 1 of the weekend. Shock number 2, Manchester United versus Liverpool. Another early kick-off, this time on Sunday at Lee Sports Village. Liverpool saw off United, beat them to go equal on points in the league, which is very exciting. United are still ahead of them on goal difference. But early on, I was watching, I got in the first half and a little bit of the second before I had to go to Aston Villa. But I messaged Sophie after the first 5-6 minutes, and I was like,
they're in trouble.
This could be a difficult day for Liverpool, because the defensively, they weren't switched on early in the game. Manchester United came out ferociously, with a real kind of intensity. Ella Toone scoring early, 3 minutes in. Galton lucky not to have scored that initial chance. And then Mallard, almost 2 minutes later, how she didn't score this, rounded the keeper and put it into the side netting. Those errors, I think, is what was United's undoing in that first half, because it allowed Liverpool to find their feet, get back into the game. Got that equaliser. Really good counter-attacking football, I thought, from Liverpool. Initially thought it was an incredible diving header from Emma Koivisto. Turns out, after multiple replays from multiple angles at multiple slow-down speeds, that it actually came off Millie Turner's head. But it was a very good equaliser. And again, Liverpool continued to grow into the second half, and I think came out with more of the momentum.
They were the better team, I think, in that second half, watching it today. They troubled Manchester United. I think Mary Earps made a couple of really good stops. I just remember that one off Lawley in that volley. Superb stop, superb strike, but superb stop as well. Very trademark Mary Earps kind of save. But yeah, I think Liverpool really found a foothold in the game. Matt Beer's teams will do that. I think it was only that game against Chelsea where they've really looked under the cosh and like they're falling apart a bit. But in that second half, like they are hard to break down, and they will counter well, and they will slice through you if you give them a chance. And I think the second goal, Taylor Hines getting on the score sheet, I think she's progressed so much this season.
So much so.
I think that she should be in a shout with England.
There you go.
Especially if Serena Wiegmann is wanting to like flip between the 4 at the back and the 3 at the back. She is a perfect left wing back. Like she's been playing in that position every week. She has all of the attributes. She's growing in her kind of strengths and techniques and everything, experience in that position. And she's got the leadership role.
Yes.
And she's got the armband, and I think that's massive for her and a really good potential perhaps for England going forward.
Yeah, so shout out there for Taylor Hines. She did score the winner as well, and her first goal since February 2022, I want to say. So she'll be delighted with that. Gemma Bonner went off with a pretty nasty looking head injury. I think she actually lost consciousness on the pitch after a clash with Rachel Williams, had to get stitches in her lip, was a pretty bloody mess. However, she was lucky to arguably still be on the pitch after a tackle. She got a yellow card for a tackle on Rachel Williams, and on replay it was studs into the shin, and it was...
I think it was a red.
Yeah.
And I think if the referee had seen it, it was probably the red. She was just the wrong side of her, and it was up to the assistant to flag the foul. But I think I just wanted to, on the injury to Gemma Bonner, she tweeted today.
Oh,
did you see her tweet?
Yeah, don't look at the photos, guys.
Don't look at the photos. If
you're squeamish.
It's a bit squeamish. But she said, went to Manchester, got my lips done, and came home with 3 points. And I thought that was a class way of doing.
I got distracted by the blood. Yeah, very good tweet. Love that. Mark Skinner after the game said, "We lost on the fundamentals of football. It's desire." He questioned his team's desire during the match. He also, Sophie, had plenty to say about the transfer market. Do you want to update our listeners on what he said?
Yeah, I think it was a very pointed phrase that he was using to talk to the board maybe of Manchester United, to kind of make sure that he knew what he thought about their kind of transfer activity. He said, "We need to continue to invest to develop the squad. We've had injuries this year which has affected the depth of the squad in 3 game weeks. We have to be more aggressive in the market, and we have to have that support and help in order to be a consistent challenger. I think we still have some development to go." And I think that is very much a way of him saying, buck up, because I think it's been well known. We've seen with the deals around Alessia Russo and Onabaje, they came in very late to try and save the players or hang on to the players, right? And that's not a great look. If a player is thinking about leaving, they want to be wanted. And if you're coming in super late to try and keep them, they're not going to feel that wanted. And I think you've got the same situation probably with Mary Earps, and you've got the same situation potentially coming up with Leah Galton, who, by all knowledge, wants to stay at Manchester United, but if they're not making the moves to try and keep her and make those contracts competitive, then that's a problem. And I think there is a problem in the gap between what Manchester United will be prepared to offer to keep players and what Chelsea and Arsenal and those likes will offer to keep players. And it's a problem. If you want to stay challenging for the very top, you have to go with it. And Manchester United, I mean, they have the money. They're not short of cash, if you know what I mean. It's a possibility for them to do it. They just need to kind of buck up and think about becoming more competitive in the market. Otherwise, they're going to struggle. Yeah,
it is worth pointing out that I think 5 of their 8 new signings, I think that's the statistic, were out injured at one point, which isn't ideal. But questions. They're now 7 points off the top. They are 4 off 3rd place, so they're in 4th place. Is it too dramatic to say there go their title chances, given the way the league has been going?
I'm very wary to say that, because I think, if you look at the case of Manchester City, who will come on to next, a couple of weeks back, when they lost back-to-back to Brighton and Arsenal, everyone was like, that's their title chance is gone, and now they're up to 2nd. You know, it can change very, very quickly in this game, and especially with the league becoming more competitive and teams dropping points left, right and centre, at times where you wouldn't have expected them normally to drop points. So they're not down and out by any means, but they are in a bit of trouble in terms of the title. That's certainly for sure. And being 4 points off 3rd, that's a problem as well.
It's not ideal.
Because they want to be in that Champions League, and it's going to be a little bit of a problem for them, I think. So definitely not down and out yet. We've still got a lot of football to go, but you just have to... The alarm bells are ringing.
Okay, well, over to the other side of Manchester, well, actually to Merseyside, because Everton hosted Manchester City. They lost 4-1. We caught up with this game today. Bunny Shaw back on the top of the scoring charts with the perfect hat-trick. I think it was left foot, right foot and a header, right? So impressive game from her once again. And you want to give Manchester City credit for the run that they've been on lately.
Yeah, I think what they've done since those defeats to Arsenal and Brighton, they beat, obviously, United at Old Trafford in the derby, but they've had this really good run of games where from that point to February, I think, they have a run against opposition who aren't a top 4 team. So they have to get the job done, and it's by no means guaranteed, but at the moment they're doing it against those opposition, and they haven't faltered since that Brighton game. And I think that's really positive for them. They've managed to get momentum, they're getting goals, they're getting Lauren Hemp's in form, Kelly's in form, Bunny Shaw is now getting back to form after that injury at the start of the season, you know, scoring the way she did, and she was really clinical all over the pitch. She was dropping deep to come into play. She was on the end of crosses. She was very, very technical in terms of her finishing, her vision and everything like that. So I think that's a worry for teams coming up, and probably for them, the break isn't coming at the right time.
Sure. She had a penalty saved by Brosnan, good save by Brosnan, and 55 seconds later she got her first goal with the most audacious lob, and the technique to wrap her foot around that ball and lob it over the keeper the way she did was really, really nice.
Yeah, I think her first 2 goals were really good. Different kinds of technique and different kinds of skills needed. The role that she did off her marker, I think it was Megan Finnegan for the second goal before she drove it home. But that lob was very, very good. And Brosnan will be annoyed at it that she got beat, but the dip on it, I think, just eluded the goalkeeper, and it was so, so good.
Roar then got the other goal, assisted by Kelly, but we have to shout out Aurora Galley. An absolute unbelievable rocket of a goal from her from miles out. Definitely worth checking that out. In fact, just go and watch the highlights.
Go and watch all the goals this weekend, actually, because there's pretty much a goal of the season competition just in the last 2 days.
Yeah.
So I'd recommend doing that.
Anyway, so that means Manchester City are up to second, 3 points behind Chelsea, who played away to Bristol at Ashton Gate. Over 9,000 there at Ashton Gate for that game, which is brilliant. Sophie, you said Christmas had come to Ashton Gate. Tell us why.
Well, it was just very festive. There was a nice little Christmas market outside Ashton Gate. There was the stalls.
There was a photo that Emma Hayes put up with a life-size cutout of Buddy the Elf.
Loving Emma Hayes' Instagram, by the way, as a side point. But yeah, no, it felt very Christmassy. In the stadium, the tunes are banging. They added the beat to every single song, so made it disco.
Oh my God,
you're really old.
You were so old. Made it disco.
Yeah.
You weren't even alive in the disco era.
Dance music.
Oh my God, just carry on. That was embarrassing.
Well, they made it dancey. There was a bop going on, but
let's move on.
Anyway, what was I saying? Yes, I was getting very frustrated though because they would only play the first 4 bars of Fairy Tale New York, which is the best Christmas song ever, and they kept cutting it out with announcements of squad announcement. I was just like, just get to the end of the damn song because it's the best song for Christmas. Anyway, side point. Bristol did. I think Chelsea were really
quality finishes. That's what we're lacking against Hacken was technical, not tactical, and they were technically very good. Their goals were technically very good. Lauren James's goal was so technically good. The way that with very little backlift, the power she got on and the accuracy she got on her shot was a thing of beauty.
But even before that, the sort of vision and the strength and the sort of ability on the ball to keep hold of the ball as she turned her marker and ran away from her, and then she just needed one hint at goal, and she just went for it, and it was audacious, but it came off. And more often than not, when Lauren James does that, she scores. So I think it was kind of trademark. I think Chelsea, yes, as you say, Emma Hayes had said against Hacken in midweek about how they were playing against a low block as they were against Bristol. They were dominant, but they were just not being clinical in their execution, and they did that against Bristol on Sunday. But I do think credit also has to go to Bristol for the kind of gutsy, not going to lie down or roll over attitude that they have under Lauren Smith. They did have chances.
They got forward.
They also didn't just sit back. They got forward. Abby Harrison was a menace at times. Theo Morgan had a huge chance that was denied by Hannah Hampton. That would have meant it was 2-1 at half time.
Debut Hampton.
Yeah, debut for Hampton. She played very well and got extra praise from her manager. But I think it was just, a gutsy performance from Bristol that probably puts them in good stead. They would probably never expecting to get anything out of that game. I know Lauren Smith said to me in post-match that she was kind of disappointed with their home record, and I was kind of like, but you've played Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester United at home, and Leicester. So Leicester will be the one you're most annoyed with. But they've got West Ham next, and that's a huge chance.
It's going to be huge. Also a big performance from Olivia Clark between the sticks for Bristol. She was recalled from her loan over at Watford. And then the other area that we have to touch on was Niamh Charles being sent off with 2 minutes to go. She'd been booked earlier in the game. And you were saying had made a couple of fouls that she was maybe lucky not to have gotten a second yellow earlier. So you were surprised Emma Hayes didn't take her off?
Yeah, I was. Like, the first one was definitely a yellow card. The second one, she got, like, the two in the first part of the second half. She got talking to by the ref, I think, on a couple of occasions, just basically calm down. And then she bundled over, I think it was Fionn Morgan again. And she was very, very lucky. I was on the phone to the studio, and I was like, she is very lucky there. I thought she was going to get in second yellow. And at that moment, Eve Perisset got ready to come on, and I was like, I think that's for Niamh Charles, because Emma Hayes has seen this as a problem. It wasn't. Niamh Charles stayed on the pitch, and from that point, I think it was kind of inevitable that that second yellow card was going to come at some point. Emma Hayes did say afterwards, I don't know what she was doing. I don't really know what she was doing either, because it was not in a dangerous position as such. Like, she had backup. She didn't need to bring her down. It was kind of maybe fatigue or inexperience, or just, I don't know,
lost her head a bit,
whatever it was. But yeah, it was a bit silly.
And it wasn't the only double yellow red of the weekend. The next one was in Leicester City versus West Ham, and I think a similar situation for Sissoko, who just probably that fatigue by the end of the match, because she got 2 yellows within 3 minutes of each other to get her red card. We'll get to that, because this game will be a blow for Willie Kirk, once again relinquishing a lead. They'd scored in the 68th minute, I think, and West Ham, while they had been creating chances, are kind of allergic to scoring goals at the minute. They seem to hit the ball everywhere in and around the goal. So Leicester maybe thought they'd gotten the 3 points. But this is another team goal you want to highlight.
It is.
From Leicester.
From the Leicester goal, so Leonard Petterman's goal. It was 4 passes, I think, from the moment Nevin won the ball in the middle of her own half. Came through to Rantala. She ran through, she had some lovely dribbling going on, found Aileen Whelan out in the wing and crossed in for Petterman, who finished perfectly. And I think that is the positive for Willie Kirk, is that the likes of Petterman and Rantala are really looking like they're settling in. And it always takes players that come from different leagues time to adjust to the physicality of the WSL, I think, and the speed of it and the tactics of it and all of that. So the fact that they are starting to show signs of really settling is really positive. He did mention again in post-match about how his team really struggle with kind of the expectation of winning. And it's not been the first time he's mentioned that. And I think it shows the fact that they are giving up leads, that it might be a problem, and he needs to get that fixed, because you can't be giving up so many winning positions. Yeah. He also described it as a game of basketball, which probably kind of tells you
end to end, not hands.
Yeah, but I think, they have done enough in this first half of the season to be safe. In my book, I think they are building, and they just need to probably reset over the Christmas period and take stock of where they're at and what they're trying to do. Yeah,
nobody's really talking about Leicester in the relegation conversation, but they are talking about West Ham, who, despite Sissoko going off in the 95th minute, were like, it's cool, we're down to 10, we'll score now. It wasn't a pretty goal. It wasn't the greatest goal you're going to see.
The defending was atrocious.
In short. It was Princess Adamayui cross to Hayashi. Great cross, by the way.
Yeah, it was a great cross, but Whelan, I don't know what on earth she's doing at the far post. She just lets Hayashi run through her, and it comes off her shin, knees,
thighs, yeah.
But I think the real positive is Princess's performance. I know she only came on for a little bit, but she's a kid from their academy. She's come through the ranks. She's the first West Ham kid to come through the ranks and play in the first team and get those kind of professional minutes. It's not going to be a straightaway journey. She's not like going to play 90 minutes every week. We will see her on and off over the next second half of the season, I think, as she gets more experience and gets bedded in.
She's 17.
But I know that they are very, very excited about her and the kind of potential that she has, and I just can't wait to see it.
It was her first senior assist. So congratulations, Princess. Very good. All right, we'll move on to where the third double yellow red card came in this weekend, and it was in the Aston Villa versus Brighton game. Last game of the weekend, last WSL game of the year. Not our last game, we've got one more to do. I was up for this one, and you got across from Bristol in time. Well done, you. A late night fixture at the Bescott Stadium, best way to finish. Villa, though, arguably were dominant. They deserved the win. Should have scored more. In fact, they were a little bit wasteful with their finishing.
I think I messaged you and said Rachel Daly is... any of these goals could be goal of the season
if she could put them
in. Because she was like hitting the most acrobatic of things, or like volleys and stuff like that. But
there was an overhead kick.
Yeah, the goalkeeper was in the way, or they were just like an inch either side of the post or over the post, and it was just not quite happening for her.
Brighton were, felt like they weren't quite at the races. They were second to every ball. The press wasn't accurate enough. They weren't all kind of pressing at the same time, and they really struggled. I think their only real threat, of course, came through Elizabeth Turland, who hit the crossbar. But the goal that Aston Villa did get in the second half was a lovely goal from Adriana Leon, and I had to interview her afterwards. And I'd said to her before the interview, like, you can't score a goal like that and not expect the media want to talk to you afterwards. And she was like, well, I can't really remember what happened. And I said, well, you better remember, because I'm going to ask you about the goal in a minute. So I told her what happened. I explained to her how she ran down the right wing, taking on Poppy Patterson, shouldered her out of the way, got around her, ran along the baseline with the ball, everyone expecting her to square it or, pass it back to somebody inside, free in the box. She's like, no, I'm just going to nutmeg the keeper. So once I explained all that to her, she then basically told me it back, but on camera. So a lovely goal from her. She was very good yesterday. She was playing on the left, she was playing on the right. She was a real thorn in the Brighton defence's side, so she did very well. And Villa will be really pleased to have gotten another 3 points. I think only their third win.
Something like that. I think it gives them space over the drop zone as well, which is really important, and I guess something to try and put the second half of the year away with and build on into January, and hope that their fortunes change a little bit. I think you saw some themes coming through, not so much the defensive issues that we've seen recently, but more that kind of wastefulness in front of goal.
Yeah, but we were kind of seeing glimpses of the old Aston Villa, which was good. It was Maz Pacheco then who got the 2 yellows and ended up getting a red card and sent off in the last maybe, I can't remember when it was maybe 5-6 minutes or something like that. They had extra time and they threw on Danielle Turner. They were like, get another defender on, because we've seen Aston Villa giving up leads before. Carla assured me that there was no nerves on the sideline, but I don't believe you, Carla. So the table currently looks like this. We've got Chelsea still on top, 25 points. Man City are up to second on goal difference on 22 points. Arsenal then in third on 22 points. United are sitting fourth on 18 points, 7 points off the top, and they are joined by Liverpool just below, who are also on 18 points. Down the bottom then of the table, we've got Bristol City back to the bottom, again on goal difference. Both themselves and West Ham have 5 points, but West Ham's minus goal difference is slightly less bad than Bristol's minus goal difference. That draw will be huge for West Ham to get points on the board. So plenty kind of still involved in that relegation battle. Brighton are in 10th on 8 points, Villa in 9th with 9, Leicester in 8th with 10. There's a lot of potential teams that could be dragged down into it. What I thought was interesting was Carla Ward saying at the end of the game that they were only 1 point off where they were this time last season, which I think is really interesting given the narrative around Villa this season.
Brian Swanson has said the same about Everton. Yeah. They're pretty much on the same points and tally as last year, and for both of those teams we all were saying about how great a season they were having last season.
And if you think about last year, Leicester were down the bottom at this time of the year with 0 points. The year before that, I think it was Birmingham on 2 points, and the year before that was Bristol on 0 points. So the fact that we have teams now with a lot more points on the board, I think BBC did an article with some data around points tallies, goals, how long games are, all that kind of stuff, and they're basically deducing that it is much tighter, as we all know, much tighter at the top, much tighter down the bottom. So it's going to make for a very
interesting...
gives them
a platform to work on.
Yeah, an interesting second half to the season. Right, the Barclays Championship is back, baby. They had a little bit of a break, including some cup games and that kind of thing, but they popped back in to say hello just before Christmas to remind us that this is still a bonkers league and is, don't give me that smug face, still highly unpredictable.
I'm very smug, by the way.
You didn't actually need to lean into the microphone to say that. Everyone can hear and see you.
Adding extra emphasis.
The scores were Durham 1, Southampton 0, Reading 1, Crystal Palace 1, Sheffield 2, Charlton 2, Sunderland 0, Birmingham 3, I know now why you're smug, Watford 3, London City Lionesses 3. London City Lionesses came back from 3-0 down to draw. Charlton came back from 2-0 down to draw. Birmingham are on an unbeaten run since September, which sends them to the top on goal difference. Keep up with me here. Charlton are in second on 23 points. 1 point separates the next 3 places: Sunderland, Palace, Southampton. And then down the bottom we've got Watford and Lewis, who are sitting in the drop zone. Now you have 20 seconds to explain to our listeners why you are smug.
I am smug because I wrote a preview at the beginning of the season and I said I predicted Birmingham would win the league, and I was feeling really embarrassed in that first section of the season because they didn't start well. It was a very, very abject start from them. But since then, they've come together. Darren Carter is doing a wonderful job there. They're scoring, they're winning, and they're on this unbeaten run, and they are now top of the table.
That's 20 seconds up.
And they're going to win the league.
Well, if you've learned nothing from the first half of the season, this league is highly unpredictable. So don't be putting anything that we jointly own on this bet, okay? Make sure it's your own hat earnings or something. I don't know. Your hat. Don't lose another hat. Okay, a quick look at the FA Cup third round, because we had 3 postponed games played this weekend. Wolves beating Hull City, Luton beating Keynsham. Ipswich were the ones who caused the shock of the round with a 3-0 win over Championship side Lewis. They love the FA Cup. So the fourth round now is set for the 14th of January with the WSL teams entering the fray. The fixture you've picked out is Newcastle versus Manchester United. Do you think that's...
Yeah, that's going to be a tasty one.
Yeah, okay. We're looking forward to that one. Okay, so the time has come for your standout moment of the week, which is?
So it's going to be simple this week. No, double choices or anything. I'm going with Martha Thomas's goal for Spurs. I think the whole move, the way that it moved from back to front, pure Bobby ball, as we now call it, it was a really, really good goal. The way that she came deep to link up the play and then ended up on the end of the ball in to send it home. The knee slide in front of the crowd, and the best way to win your first ever North London derby in front of that crowd, which I thought was a great crowd. There was a really good atmosphere inside the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, so I'm going with that one.
Bonus points for keeping it to 1 and not being rogue. Well done. Elsewhere, as we said at the top of the show, the FAI have announced a new manager for the Irish women's national team, and it is, drumroll please, it's Eileen Gleeson. So probably the least and most expected person, perhaps. For me, big surprise. She'd effectively ruled herself out of it. You know, in numerous media press conferences, she'd said she wasn't going for it. She hadn't fully closed the door on the job itself, but kind of like, not right now kind of thing. She very much enjoyed her role as head of women's football. I think it's exciting. She's shown what she can do with the team. It's going to add continuity as well into the next year and the next phase of the Nations League. Part of me feels, is it ambitious enough in terms of getting in someone with experience to really take them to the next level? We shall see. I'm happy to be proven wrong. But arguably, that league being run, we would have been expecting Ireland to top the group anyway. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I was kind of hoping as well for maybe a more high-profile appointment, just in terms of the ambitions of the Irish team. And you go to your first World Cup, and that's not to say, as you say, it's not to say she can't do it. And we haven't actually been able to see her against the bigger sides yet. But it's just, you wanted a kind of a statement. But at the same time, there is no one who knows Irish football like Eileen Gleeson does. You know, she's been around the setup for a long time, around the FAI for a long time. She knows all of the players coming through. She knows the players already there. She knows the domestic league. She knows the players who are playing abroad. So I think in terms of that kind of knowledge piece, she's probably got that down. But in terms of like her, she's just unproven as a manager against the tougher opposition.
And I'd also say it means she's no longer, I assume, going to be the head of women's football, which is a real loss as well, because as you say, she knows the game inside out in Ireland. So it'll be interesting to see who takes up that appointment. And we also have to hat tip to Rebecca Welsh, first female referee in the Premier League. I think anyone stepping up to be the first at anything is exceptionally brave, and we know how much scrutiny women in football get. And
you just need to look at the discourse this last couple of weeks.
And any time a woman does something, especially for the first time, they seem to carry the entire weight of their gender on their shoulders, and as I said, are often under unnecessary and immense scrutiny. So the fact that she's the first, she's taken that brave step, she's proven herself, we are very excited for you. So well done, Rebecca.
And I'm going to tune in and I'm going to cheer her on.
Supportive ref in that game. All right, well, that's a wrap on another episode of Extra Time with Girls on the Ball.
1 second.
Oh.
Questions, Rachel.
Oh.
We've had a few questions in.
Oh, sorry. Do you know what you guys have missed out on, by the way, which I'm really sorry for? Because this is the second time we're doing this, we had some really funny jokes in the first.
We've had funny jokes right now.
We had some funny jokes, but
Anyway.
I'm just telling our listeners, I'm sorry that you've missed out. You just imagine just how funny this episode was. Go on, give me some questions.
Okay, so...
oh my God, there's loads.
Yeah, first up, the ownership at London City.
Oh,
and
yes.
the thoughts on that. So, I don't know if anyone followed last week. It was announced that Michelle Kang was taking over, had acquired London City Lionesses from Diane Culligan, and it adds to kind of women's football empire she owns. She's a majority owner of Washington Spirit. She's also a majority owner of Olympique Lyon. So now she's added the London City Lionesses to the pack, as it were. I think it remains to be seen. There's always like positives and negatives, but I think it was very clear last summer that London City needed some help. There was all sorts of stuff flying around about how they were in a bit of trouble, especially financially. And we know that Michelle Kang has money, that she'll come in and she'll try and change it around. And I think it's something for her to like that she can really work into her own model as a football club. So watch the space. I'm not going to go like full blow the trumpets and everything, but I think it is good that there's someone who's wanting to invest in a football club, and especially an independent team like London City Lionesses. It isn't easy, so the more that they can get, the better, in my point of view. So we've had a couple of conversations, questions about the Arnold Clark Cup and the She Believes Cup, and people who are new to the game and don't really know what these tournaments are and why maybe particularly the former is so popular, although I'm particularly fond of the latter. So
I think, well, more about why it's not happening this year. I think it was always at risk once the Nations League came out, and I think it was always going to be every other year. So I think despite England not qualifying to the next stage of the Nations League to then try and qualify as Team GB, they probably had to make a decision around that early on because they would have had to get other teams in and stuff like that. So there will be friendlies in that window, and hopefully it means resting some players and bringing up some younger players and giving them time and giving the management time to see other players in that England shirt.
But I think it is a strong tradition in women's football. It has been for years about that February window.
I thought you were going to say Arnold Clark Cup. It's been here at hot
So
second.
we used to have the Cyprus Cup. We also had the Algarve Cup. They are now kind of defunct, or like nowhere near what they were back in the day. She Believes Cup then came in, so England used to play at the Cyprus Cup in February, and then they signed a contract with She Believes, so they did that for 3 or 4 years, I think.
Four, I think, at least.
So went over to America in February, played 3 games. Good tournament experience. The travel was absolutely insane, but it was a good way to prepare for it was 3 games in a week, so you had to travel, you had to be able to adjust very quickly. It gave you good preparation for a major tournament. And then England decided to bring it back home. So not the She Believes. She Believes continued. The US are in charge of that one, but England started their own tournament back home. So 3 years ago now.
Well, yeah, it would be the third year.
So this would have been the third year. But so we've had 2 editions of the competition already. It gained quite a high profile because England won it the first year. Millie Bright was
Golden Boot
alongside Alexia Putellas, which was a bit mad. England won it and then went to go on to win the Euros, and I think that's why it's gained popularity. I personally really miss travelling to America, so selfishly I'd love to go back to the She Believes, but that is a history of women's football and that February window.
That's great.
But I don't think it will happen for long.
What, it won't happen for long?
Like, I don't think that, like, I think with the Nations League and other things, it will get phased out, that kind of February window competition.
Right. Okay. I'll allow you 2 more questions.
2 more questions.
Yeah,
okay.
so make them good. Oh my God, there's loads.
So we've had about from Neve Murphy about Cara Crooning-Cross and our opinions on her and what kind of game changer for us, unbelievable talent.
She's very good. She kind of reminds me of when Palova came in last season for Arsenal, and you could see how good she could be, and she wasn't quite there yet. And now we're seeing the fruits of time for Victoria Palova and how good she's been for Arsenal. I think I think Kyra Green Cross, similar situation. You've seen how good she can be, but also know there's so much potential once she gets more time under her belt as well.
Jonas says she came in with a couple of niggles. She obviously was playing in Hammarby in Sweden, so I think it does take you time to adjust. I know she's been playing at the World Cup as well, so need to get over the World Cup and all of that game time. She played a lot for Australia as well, and she travelled a lot. But also the league in Sweden, maybe she just needed to adjust to the league in England a bit. She had a couple of niggles apparently, I think. So it was always going to take a little bit of time before she was integrated into the first team squad. And when she's got her moments, she is very, very good. And I think the future of Arsenal is that Palova, Kunikros midfield.
Interesting.
And I think that's where they'll be trying to push progress towards, because I love Kim Little to bits, but she can't last forever. And, there will be a time where she does hang up those boots.
Oh my God, it's so sad.
It makes me very sad.
Come on to the next question.
Final question from Summer and Eleanor, especially, about the step-by-step documentary and the ACL research around it and how it will help.
Well, we haven't had a chance to watch it all yet, obviously. Arsenal will be dropping episodes, I think, daily. I think it's really brave for the two of them to cover this, probably one of the hardest times in their careers, and arguably a very difficult time for both of them, especially Beth personally as well. But they recognised the, I guess, unique situation they were in and how that could help the women's game more widely. And I think we've seen it, we often see that in women's football. There's a recognition of what players can do to help further the game. So I think massive hats off to them. I think it's only going to benefit the wider discussions around ACL injuries. I'm really looking forward to watching the rest of it. But yeah, I think it's a really important topic, and it's really important to shine a light on it. And I don't think there's one clear answer. I don't think anyone knows all the answers yet either, but things like this will only...
It's a multifaceted injury, and there's so many things that can cause it, but the more knowledge there is, and the more face-to-face knowledge there is, or in-person knowledge there is, there's always research and stuff like that, and more needs to be done around that. But also this can add a value as well, in terms of getting to know the people and what they're going through and how they're dealing with it. And I know Gary Lewin is interviewed on the documentary as well, so that's a really good insight. And I think Arsenal have done a lot of learning. They've had to, with the 4 injuries.
Oh, yes.
So five ACL. Oh, yeah. So with the 5 ACL injuries they've had to deal with, they've had to do a lot of learning very quickly, and this will have been a big part of it.
For sure. Am I allowed to wrap now?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. Well, now it's a wrap on another episode of Extra Time with Girls on the Ball, our final episode of 2023. We are off, however, to Gothenburg on Wednesday for our final match to see Chelsea against Häcken, a vital game after that draw last week, where we did do a bonus episode. So if you've missed that, go to your podcast apps. It will be there. It's going to be very cold, Sophie.
Yeah,
it's going to be very cold.
Lose.
Oh my God.
Have to come with us.
Yes, so we are going to be taking a much needed break over Christmas, but if on the off chance you're going to miss our faces, we will be doing a live on Instagram on Saturday and looking back over the year. So if you have any questions around that, do send them in to us. But otherwise, we will be back in the new year. Make sure you subscribe where you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well, so you don't miss an episode on the off chance we decide to drop a bonus one. But yeah, otherwise, guys, have a very Merry Christmas, enjoy the break, and have a brilliant new year. We will see you then.